Hey guys! So first of all, sorry there was no video last week. It happened. This week we're going to talk about something that was suggested by my boyfriend, and I thought it was a really great idea, and that's traveling as a musician. So it doesn't seem like it's that much different. You just have an instrument. But that instrument can be a very big issue, especially if you play a bigger instrument. I know people who basically just don't travel apart from driving because they don't trust their instruments on airlines. And I understand. But I'm going to talk about some things that you need to know and that you should know about traveling on planes with instruments, and then also about practicing and things like that, and just general tips. So, if you play a small instrument, flute, clarinet, oboe, anything like that, you can carry it on. Anything up to about a trumpet is allowed to be a carry-on. Check the airline's restrictions, because we all know about the crazy Air Canada restrictions on violas a couple of years ago. So check each airline, but ideally anything trumpet or smaller, and violin and viola usually count within that range, are perfectly fine carry-ons. You won't need to buy an extra seat or anything like that. The issue it's if you have a detachable bell horn, that's usually okay too. One of the snail cases is harder. When you get to the bigger instruments, trombone, cello, double bass, I don't even want to think about harp. Usually harpists don't need to travel with their instruments because of the problem with the transportation, so usually the venues will provide a harp. But that's not always the case, and that's a different story. I don't know anything about that. But there's always a steward cabin or cabinet. Sometimes you can convince them to let you use it, but that you can't always rely on that. In bigger planes, things like trombone will fit in the overhead bins, especially if it's not that busy, and you can sometimes convince the airline to just let you hold it. But when you start traveling with bigger instruments, that's where it gets complicated. You can buy an extra seat for your instrument. Cellists will do that. I've seen bassists do it too. That's the safest way because they can't do anything about it then. It's expensive though. If you are a brass player, you have a little bit more leeway in checking your instrument. If you can get a hard case and pack it with soft things and make sure that your instrument's really protected and gate check it, I've seen okay results out of that, but the safest thing is to keep your instrument with you at all times. If that's not possible, keep it with you as long as you can. Never check your instrument from the start. Just don't do it. If you have to check it, gate check it, and if not, it's really, really hard. I'm really fortunate that I play an instrument that's acceptable for carry-on. The other thing is TSA. Sometimes the agent won't know what you have and will flag it, especially flute players actually, because the majority of the instrument is metal. It shows up in the x-rays, and they get really confused. The issues I have the most is when I travel with my alto flute, because they don't know what that is. And with the curved head joint, it looks really weird, and I get it. Chances are they're going to ask you to open it. If they are opening it themselves, you can ask to open the case yourself. Be really careful about that, and do it in a really polite way, because sometimes these agents don't take very well to being told how to do their jobs. And I've had an experience where the TSA agent was opening my case upside down and refused to let me turn it right side up so he could open it himself. And so just be really careful. Legally, they are required to let you open your own case, but just be really careful about how you go about it, because you could end up with a situation where your instrument gets broken because of it. And we all hear the horror stories about instruments getting ruined. And I feel so awful for all of those people. But the reality is, that's why you need insurance. you should have all of your instruments insured. There are a lot of companies that have specialized insurance for musicians and for musical instruments. And if you have an instrument of value, you need it insured. And yes, it means that you get money, not your instrument back, but that's better than losing $13,000 because an airline broke your instrument. Or more. So that's kind of the guidelines for airplanes. It's easier when you're on buses or cars, and obviously when you're driving yourself, it's easiest. Trains are also usually fine. So if you have the option to take ground travel to where you're going, that's a lot better. Trains are honestly the safest for instruments, besides driving yourself. But in the States, we don't really have a train system that functions, so that's harder. And Greyhound can get rough. So just be really careful and plan ahead, especially when you're traveling with your instrument. Then you have the question of, where do I practice? Especially when you're in hotels, it's kind of uncomfortable. I've found that as long as you don't practice late at night or early in the morning, no one's really going to complain. If you wait until housekeeping comes in and then practice afterwards, no one's really going to complain. Most people are going to be gone for the day, like between the hours of 3 and 6. No one's really going to be in a hotel. So if you want to practice, that's a great thing. If they ask you to stop, obviously stop. I have a friend who legitimately just practices wherever she can. There's photos of her practicing in stairwells, in parking lots, and anything, and no one's really ever stopped her. So the reality is, if you need to practice, just find somewhere relatively secluded and safe and practice. Granted, this girl plays flute, so it's a little less intrusive than, say, a trumpet would be. But that's what practice meets are for. If you have the ability to mute your instrument, do so when you're practicing in a hotel. I wish I had that luxury. And just be respectful. So yeah, I think that's the major things I want to cover about traveling with instruments. It's all pretty basic, and it doesn't seem that much different than normal travel, but like, it's something to keep in mind, especially just thinking ahead, being very, very aware of the fact that you are traveling with an instrument that you will not let out of your sight. And if all else fails, I've had some situations where they've told me that my flute bag was too big, and I've told them there's a musical instrument in here, it's very, very expensive, everything like that, and they've kind of backed off. So usually if you say it's an instrument and you can give them a number value, it can be exaggerated. They back off. So I hope this is helpful. Starting on Sunday, I am going to be in Wisconsin for a festival, and for those of you who don't know, when I'm at festivals, I kind of do more of a daily vlog style videos. So I'll probably end up posting 5 or 6 over the course of the 2 weeks. And if you guys have any other video ideas, please let me know, and I will see you soon.